What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and our 2022 predictions continue here with the Oklahoma State Cowboys. You're watching our college football channel as we roll on and take a look first at some of the other predictions here for Oklahoma State. The FPI has them at 8.5 and 3.9. Athlon at 8 and 4. The over/under is 8.5. So yeah, you're right there. 8 and 4, 9 and 3. That seems to be the number for Oklahoma State. I tend to agree with that. This is a team that I'm having a hard time with, honestly. I originally thought that they were going to have a pretty big drop-off, but they've got some things going for them. So let's talk about the good and we'll talk about the bad. Let's start with the good. They should have a very good pass rush. That defensive line, that's going to be the strength, I think, really of this whole team. Spencer Sanders and what he can do running the football is big for them. He needs to develop in the passing game, though. I don't know if they're going to be able to lean on the run as much. Not a ton of experience in the backfield. Offensive line, how good are they going to be? That'll be a big question mark. But where I'm concerned about Oklahoma State is really in their back seven. They lose their top two linebackers from last year. They don't have much of anything coming back in the secondary. So I think really their defense, it's all going to depend on that defensive line. Are they going to be good enough to where they can cause havoc in the backfield and maybe not expose that back seven, that secondary? That's going to be, I think, the big question for Oklahoma State. I don't know if they're going to be able to be one of those top-tier teams this year. But they do have Mike Gundy, and I think he's one of the best coaches in college football. I think he'll have this team ready to go. So I'm expecting a good season. I don't know how good, though. Let's go through the schedule. Here is that schedule. They'll play Arizona State in the non-conference. That's their big Power 5 opponent there. And we will start with Central Michigan first. That should be a pretty easy win, and then go to Arizona State. Arizona State doesn't have much coming back from last year. I'm not very high on this team. I think Oklahoma State, especially playing at home, should roll in this one. It might be close for a little bit, but I think the Cowboys will pull away, and I do expect them to win pretty big in this one and then also beat University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. I'm pretty sure that's what those initials are. So I've got them starting off 3-0. And then they get into Big 12 conference play. Tough game right out of the gates there against Baylor. Interesting that they have a bye week before playing Baylor this early in the year. So they'll play their 3 non-conference games, get a bye week. It's almost like it'll be a new season. They'll start a new season, the Big 12 season, because then it's all conference games after that. This will be a big game for both teams. I think it kind of sets the tone in Big 12 conference play. It's a tough one for me. I think the teams are pretty similar. Of course, played a great game in the Big 12 championship last year. When it's this close for me, I'm usually going to lean towards the home field advantage, and that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to say that Baylor will win this game, and they're going to give Oklahoma State their first loss of the season. Moving on to Texas Tech. A quality team. They're not going to be a great team, but they're not going to be a bad team. They will be a solid team, probably right there on the borderline of a bowl game. Maybe a 7-5 type season if things go well for them. So I don't expect this to be an easy win for Oklahoma State, but Oklahoma State should be the better team. I think, top to bottom, there's a better team. Plus, they're playing at home, so I think this will be a win. But you can expect a lot of close games, for not just for Oklahoma State, but all these teams in the Big 12, because this conference, there's a lot of parity in it, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see how it plays out. I think you're going to see a lot of close games, a lot of dramatic finishes. Even this game against Texas Tech could be a really close game, but I'm going to say that Oklahoma State will win it. So 4-1, moving on to TCU. TCU going to have, I think, a really good offense this year. Defense, we'll see, but this is going to be, again, another great game, close game, probably a dramatic finish. It's one of those coin flip games for me. I could see it going either way. Usually when that's the case, I'm going to pick the home team, and so that's what we'll do here. I'm going to say that TCU beats Oklahoma State, and they then drop to 4-2. Up next, it's Texas. This will be a good one here. Is that Texas offensive line going to be able to hold up against this defensive line of Oklahoma State? That'll be the game within the game here, and I think it will be, it'll probably make the difference in this game. And I don't know if Texas will, if their offensive line is going to be that good. I think Oklahoma State's defensive line is going to be that good. They get some pressure, get some sacks, maybe force a turnover or two. They're not going to stop Texas on offense, but they will, I think, slow them down just enough. Plus, they're playing at home. I'm going to say Oklahoma State gets this win, gets a big one over Texas, and then they improve to 5-2. Up next, they'll play Kansas State on the road, a veteran team. A lot of guys coming back this year. Adrian Martinez at quarterback, very interesting. We'll see how that works out. But this, again, is one of those games, kind of like TCU. I could see it going either way. It's really a toss-up type game. And when it comes down to that, usually going to go with the home team. That's what we'll do here. We'll say Kansas State will beat Oklahoma State. All right, so that's their third loss of the season. Going to knock them out of, a playoff contention or anything like that for sure. They will play Kansas next, a Kansas team that I don't expect to be terrible this year. I've talked about that if you watch the other videos, but they're not going to be, I think, good enough to win this game. I think Oklahoma State's able to go on the road, maybe a scare, maybe a game that's close at halftime, somewhere in there, but I think Oklahoma State will find a way to pull away late, and they get a win over Kansas. So that puts them at 6-3. Up next is Iowa State. Not very high on the Cyclones. Lost a lot of production from last year. A very disappointing team last season. Oklahoma State's playing at home. I don't see them struggling much in this one. I think the Cowboys get the win. They improve to 7-3. The next game is on the road at Oklahoma. It's Bedlam. Should be a good one. Looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. Again, it's going to go back to that defensive line for Oklahoma State. If they can make some plays, they'll have a chance in this game. But it's one that, I would probably lean Oklahoma on a neutral field. So at home, I'm definitely going to go with Oklahoma. I do think it'll be a good game, but I'm going to go with the Sooners. I think Oklahoma State drops this one. They lose their fourth game of the season. And then they finish up with West Virginia at home. Should be another good game. It'll be, a lot of these games. You can go down the list. Baylor, I think, Texas Tech, TCU, Texas, Kansas State, Oklahoma, and now West Virginia. You've got 7 games, I think, on this schedule that could really go either way. Should all be really good games. And West Virginia right there in that group. And again, when it's a close game like this, usually going to go with home field advantage. I think Oklahoma State is probably the better team anyways. On a neutral field, I would take Oklahoma State in this one. But I think West Virginia has enough to where it will be a good game, a close game. I think Oklahoma State gets the win. I've got them finishing off 8-4. But really, it's about those games. Baylor, TCU, Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU, Texas, Kansas State, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. I think they win the other games. I feel pretty confident that they'll win those other games. So it's really about those 7 games or so right there. How do they do in those 7 games? I've got them going 3-4 in those games, but let's say they flip that around, go 4-3. They could easily go 9-3. That wouldn't surprise me at all. So I'm right there with those other numbers. I don't think it'll be a down year all the way down to like a 6-6, 7-5 type season, but I don't see this team being right there at the top of the Big 12 again. I think 8-4, 9-3 is the record. My prediction for Oklahoma State is 8-4 in 2022.